We found the building. That used to be the hard part. The emergency call arrived with an address. The map identified the property. The dispatcher sent police, fire, or EMS to the correct location. Mission accomplished. Except the caller's not standing at the front door. They may be on the 8th floor, locked inside an office, in a rear warehouse, down the hallway, behind a security checkpoint, in a classroom, a patient room, or someplace nondescript within a sprawling campus containing several buildings that all share the same street address. Yeah, public safety may have reached the property, but the emergency is still another 100 feet away. And sometimes those last 100 feet can take longer than the first 10 miles. And that's coming up next on TiPS, Today in Public Safety.
Welcome to TiPS, Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Here's your host, Fletch, with today's tips.
Welcome to TiPS, Today in Public Safety. This is Fletch. I'm a NENA certified ENP. Welcome to TiPS, Today in Public Safety, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we talk about the technology, operations, policies, and people behind emergency communications. Today we're going to talk about what happens when location technology gets responders to the correct building, because finding the building is not the same thing as finding the emergency. For decades, public safety location was largely built around a street address. That made sense. The telephone number was associated with the place. The place had an address, and responders were sent there. But today, buildings have become larger. Campuses have become more complex. The workplace has become more mobile, and telephone systems have become less tied to physical desks. And our emergency information today comes from phones, sensors, panic buttons, cameras, medical devices, building systems, and all kinds of other connected technology. Yeah, the address still matters, but it's often only the beginning of the search. And the next challenge is the last 100 feet. The address gets you to the property. Addresses are good because they give public safety a starting point. It can guide responders to a house, a commercial building, a school, hospital, factory, or a government facility. Now, at a single-family home, that's probably enough. The building is relatively small, and the callers can often direct responders into the correct room. But now consider a large office complex. That address may point to a property containing multiple entrances, parking areas, loading docks, elevator banks, security desks, and hundreds, if not thousands, of individual workspaces. A school campus can contain several buildings, athletic facilities, administrative offices, and multiple access roads, and hallways that have been renamed or renovated several times. A warehouse may cover hundreds of thousands of square feet, and a hotel may have 20 floors and several hundred rooms. Yeah, street address gets responders to the property, but it doesn't necessarily tell them where to go next. Dispatchable location, the first step. Raybaum's Act helped move the conversation beyond the general street address by requiring a dispatchable location for multi-line telephone systems. That dispatchable location provides additional information such as room, suite, floor, or similar detail needed to locate the caller. And that was a critical step. It recognized that an enterprise telephone number should not simply point to the corporate headquarters, the main billing address, or the front desk. No, the emergency location needs to describe where the caller actually can be found. But in many buildings, even a dispatchable location may not provide the entire answer. Room 214 may be meaningful to the building occupants. But does the responder know what entrance provides the fastest access? Or whether the room number is even visible from the hallway? And what about the elevator? Does it require a badge? Is that corridor blocked by construction? Has the victim moved since the call was placed? Location isn't merely a label, it's a path. And that last 100 feet is where the label has to become an actionable route. The building has information. Today's modern buildings know a great deal about what's happening inside them. Access control systems know not only the doors that are locked, but the credentials that were used recently. Video systems can show activity in a hallway or lobby, and fire alarm systems know exactly which detector activated. Elevator systems knows which cars are operating and where they're currently located, and Wi-Fi systems are able to identify where a connected device was last observed. Then you've got Bluetooth beacons, real-time location systems, and modern indoor positioning technology that may be able to narrow either a device or a badge location. And environmental sensors can detect smoke, heat, water, movement, sound, or hazardous conditions. And hotel systems understand the guest room. In industrial systems, they know the zone, production line, or specific machinery involved, and buildings may already possess many of the pieces that can locate the emergency. The challenge is really just getting the correct pieces to the correct people at the correct time. Dispatchers don't have the time to log into 5 separate systems and start manually assembling the story while the emergency is unfolding. And first responders don't need a truckload of data that they've got to interpret while approaching the scene. Good information is correlated, filtered, and presented in a way that supports the response. A pin on a map is just not enough. Indoor mapping is often described as the solution to the last 100 feet. And while it's certainly part of the solution and able to show detailed rooms, hallways, stairways, elevators, doors, utility areas, and access points, and it's able to provide responders with a much better understanding of the facility before they enter. But a floor plan alone is static, and an emergency is not. The useful question is not simply, where is room 214? Now, the useful question is, hey, where's the caller right now, and what entrance should I use? Where was the alarm activated, and has that person been moved? How about any hazards between the responder and the victim? What do we need to know there? Yeah, map becomes operationally valuable when live incident information can be placed in context on that map. Location must follow the person. The traditional location model often assumes that the person remains near the device that originated the emergency call. That's not always true. People may dial 911 and then move towards an exit. Teachers may activate a panic button and then move students to another room. A hospital employee may call from a desk phone but follow a patient into a hallway. And a mobile worker may place a call while walking through a warehouse. Victims could be moved by another person, and a wearable device may generate an alert while the wearer continues moving. Smartphones may provide updated location information during the incident, and correlating that data with connected badges, Wi-Fi sessions, or building access events may provide additional clues. Yeah, that initial location remains important, but public safety also needs to understand where that location is fixed, estimated, or likely to change. And that distinction needs to be visible. Dispatchers need to know whether the information represents the location assigned to a telephone, the location of a fixed device, the last known position of a mobile device, and whether the end location is manually entered. A sensor activation point, maybe a room associated with a panic button, or a system calculated by an indoor location system. Those are all very different kinds of information, and they carry different confidence levels. And they should not be presented as though they are all equally precise. The human still matters. Sure, technology can narrow the search. It can identify the building, floor, room, door, hallway, device, or sensor. But the human conversation remains essential. The telecommunicator may need to ask what room you're in. What can you see? What entrance did you use? Are you near a stairwell or an elevator? Can you hear the alarm? Is there a room number on the door? Are you able to move safely, and has the person you're calling about changed locations? Is there someone there that can meet responders? What about the doors? Are they locked? Yeah, technology needs to improve all those questions. It doesn't need to eliminate them though, because when the dispatcher already has a likely building and floor, the questions can become more precise. Instead of asking the caller to explain the entire facility from memory, the dispatcher can move into confirmation mode. I show you on the 3rd floor near the east stairwell. Is that correct? I have the alarm associated with room 312. Are you still in that room? Responders are approaching the south entrance. Can someone meet them there? Yeah, this is where technology becomes a tool for the telecommunicator rather than just another screen competing for attention. The last 100 feet requires coordination. Finding the person inside the building is not just a mapping problem. it's an operational coordination problem. The ECC may know the likely location. Building security may control the doors. Facilities personnel may understand the internal layout, and responders may be approaching from different entrances. School administrators know which classroom numbers changed after a renovation, and hospitals may use one room numbering system internally and yet another on architectural plans. Corporate campus buildings may be connected by enclosed walkways, and warehouse employees may refer to aisle numbers, zones, loading bays, rather than rooms. Yeah, that last 100 feet, it requires a common operating picture. And that picture needs to answer 3 basic questions. Where's the emergency? How do responders reach it? And what might delay or endanger them along the way? What the enterprise needs to do. Organizations shouldn't assume that public safety is going to understand the insides of their building, simply because the outside address is correct. They need to examine the entire emergency path. Does every telephone report a dispatchable location, internally as well as externally? Do the room and floor identifiers mean something to someone who doesn't work in the building every day? What about maps? Do they match the current floor layout? And are the entrances clearly labeled? What about locked doors? How are responders going to access those? This is why security needs to receive immediate notification when someone calls 911. And it's best if someone meets responders and escorts them. If you've got panic buttons, are they associated with meaningful location info? And have you supplied your maps to public safety? And as for renovations, department moves, and room number changes, have they been updated? And have you trained employees how to describe their location? And have your emergency procedures been tested with the local ECC as well as responding agencies? Because a system that accurately reports Building 4 is still going to fail if nobody can tell responders how to enter Building 4 or where the emergency is located once they arrive. What ECCs need to ask. Emergency communication centers also need to consider how indoor location information is going to appear in the workflow. Is it going to arrive as text, additional data, as a map, as a device location, maybe a building alarm, or a panic button event? If location updates, can the call taker distinguish between the original location and the updated one? And can a dispatcher send that information directly to field responders? Because that's who needs it. And when first responders get it, are they looking at the same indoor map? Is the source identified? And is there a timestamp on it? And what about a confidence level? Can public safety determine whether it's current or stale? And don't forget, more information is not automatically better information, because useful information is information that can be understood, trusted, and acted upon. The bottom line. The first mile gets responders into the neighborhood. The address gets them to the property, but the dispatchable location gets them closer. Indoor maps, sensors, access systems, and connected devices all can narrow the search even further. But the job's not complete until a responder can reach the person who needs help. That last 100 feet are where technology, building operations, emergency communications, and human judgment have to work together. Dots on maps are not the destination. A room number isn't the route. And arriving at the building doesn't mean arriving at the emergency. We spent decades improving our ability to find that correct address. Now it's time to finish the job. Because when someone needs help inside a building, that last 100 feet may be the most important distance of all. And that wraps up this episode of TiPS Today in Public Safety. This is Fletch. Thanks so much for listening. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time. Hey, it's Fletch. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you learned something new. Remember to catch all of my previous episodes of TiPS Today in Public Safety, published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on most social media platforms and streaming 24/7 at 911tips.com. My blogs are located at fletch.tv, and my personal website is at fletch911.com. Remember to like and subscribe. It really helps out the algorithms. And if you're in public safety, thanks for what you do every single day. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
You've been listening to TiPS, Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Hosted by Fletch and available every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Catch past episodes on 911tips.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember to join us each week for the latest on NG 911. I am Spider Harrison, the official 911 voiceover dude. Catch me on Sirius XM on various channels, including 90s on 9, the 10 spot, and on the Weekend Countdown on Hits 1. Or don't regret it for the rest of your life. Either way, I'm good.